Welcome once again, our returning listeners and our new listeners. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the Agile Matrix podcast. Now, here we unravel the mysteries of Agile methodologies and frameworks, and we delve into the dynamic world of adaptable thinking. I'm your host today, your ever excited Tammy. Yeah, that's me. We're diving deep into the heart of Agile philosophy with a special guest who epitomizes the essence of adaptability. His name is Robin Hackshall. Now, let's look at this idea so you can get exactly what we're talking about. Imagine a landscape of constant change where challenges evolve faster than solutions and success hinges on the ability to pivot gracefully. Now, our guest today, Robin, is a powerhouse in the realm of personal, business, and executive coaching. He joins us as a beacon of insight, guiding individuals, teams, and organizations through the labyrinth of complexity with elegant simplicity. Now, Robin is armed with a license in Scrum Mastery, Product Mastery, and Team Mastery. Robin is actually, to be fair, is more than a guide. Robin is a seasoned navigator steering teams towards clarity amidst the chaos that we call the world of work. But that's not all. Robin's toolkit extends beyond the conventional. As a Lego serious play facilitator, he harnesses the power of play to unlock creativity and innovation in problem solving, and that's a great skill. So in this episode, we embark on the journey of transformation, exploring the essence of the Agile mindset and unraveling the secrets to cultivating the culture of adaptability. So what am I telling you? Like I always say, fasten your seatbelt, get your favorite beverage, get your water, get ready, and prepare to shift your perspective as we welcome Robin Hackshall to illuminate the path to Agile enlightenment. So welcome, Robin. Welcome to Agile Matrix podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, Robin, people are just meeting you today for the first time. At least people that are listening, they haven't met you before. Tell us, who is Robin?
So, I come from a very different background. So, my background isn't sort of Agile or Scrum. I actually did a degree in criminology and social policy. So, very, very different.
Yeah.
I was a crime analyst before moving into the NHS and analysing healthcare data. So back in sort of 2011, one of the pieces of work that I supported the publication of, the processing of that data had to come from external third party in-house. And my boss was the product owner, but he didn't have the time or capacity to fulfill that role. So I got dropped in the deep end and was empowered. And I was really empowered. I sort of outranked my boss on backlog to be the product owner, and sort of did that for 18 months. And at the end of it, sort of didn't want to go back, but the organization had no sort of product owner role. So then sort of turned my hand to sort of Scrum Mastery and sort of performed that role in the NHS for another year or so before sort of moving on to Scrum Master roles elsewhere at Equifax and Skybet. Worked as a contractor at Lloyd's Banking Group, and for meeting yourself when we were at Vodafone and then work there, and that sort of supported my move into Agile coaching, but like I say, sort of more recently looking more incorporating professional coaching into that, training as well, all the time trying to build Lego into anything.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's very true. Thank you very much for that. I remember when we were at Vodafone where, if I remember my role was Kanban Master.
Yes, that new role that probably was the only ever time that it's existed.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. So today we're talking about, let me look at the top again. Yeah, so we're looking at the Agile mindset, cultivating a culture of adaptability. So when you hear that, what comes to mind?
So that adaptability and mindset, there are other words that sort of get thrown in there that if you haven't got them, then it's not going to work. So there needs to be a level of empowerment. I think empowerment's really key. A level of autonomy, so that decision making at the right level, not always having to go up the food chain to make a decision. The ability to experiment. Like without that experimentation, you're never going to find out what works and what doesn't work. And it's really important to find out what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And having that sort of iterative approach where you can try something, try it for a period of time, sort of have an outcome you want to try and achieve, and then look back to say, right, did we achieve it? If we didn't, why didn't we? Look at that and then learning from it before potentially pivoting and trying something else, building upon what you've learned. And that's where sort of some of the Lego analogies will come back in, is we need to sometimes lay those foundations.
That is so true. That is so true. You know, adaptability. Yeah. Because when you look at it, you in the end, you look, like you rightly said, if you can't experiment, then how will you know what works? I'm looking at empiricism, right?
Yeah.
You don't know, so you need to try something and eventually determine, does it work? Does it not work? Do you on board? Do you pivot from it?
Yeah.
That's a good example. So one question, so I have a couple of questions here. Yeah. So how can organizations, in your experience and your knowledge, how will you say organizations can foster a mindset of adaptability and flexibility among their teams so that they can embrace change in an agile environment? How do you, tell us what you know, and then maybe some experience you've had.
Yeah. So I think going to reiterate some of those words, that if they're putting that into their teams, they need to give their teams a high level of autonomy, that decision-making ability to work out what works for the team. Now, there's a level of pragmatism that needs to come with that, in that the team just can't go off on their own. But they also need to think about the system that they're working in, because they don't want to make just their area better. They need to work out how they make the other teams that they work with better, and optimize the system to not optimize locally. And that's one of the things that things can fall down, is that if we have a number of teams all starting off on this agile journey, we all sort of give them all a level of autonomy. If you just let them go, but don't sort of hold the reins a little bit, they could go off in so many different directions. It's really difficult to get them back together. So there needs to be that level of systems thinking to go with that. And then sort of bringing things like sort of communities of practice, or sort of guilds or chapters, whichever sort of term you'd like to use for that sort of collective group of agilists, so that they can share what they've learned, what worked and what didn't work. And what didn't work for one team might work for a different team, because of that team structure and makeup, or the work they're doing, the technologies that they're using. So it's really important to continually share that learning and the success and sort of disappointments that might come across. But actually we can learn from those things to make the whole better.
Wow. You know, I had a discussion recently with Al Shallowy, and actually said something that you're saying. And he mentioned the fact that, you know, that a lot of times people, we look at a Scrum team and we look at it in isolation. But that is good, but you have to look at it as a system. You have to look at the systemic view. So, and that's what he said, something that you actually hammered on, which was, he mentioned self-organization. But he looked at it as a way that there has to be some leading to it. Because he said something, he said his exact term was, people self-organize half of the time wrong and half of the time right. So in other words, if we let them to be, it'll be like herding cats, you know, they just go in any direction. But there has to be some level of, we are trying to achieve that goal, not just any goal. And these are the reasons behind it. So find a way to,
and I think that's where sort of leadership are really, really key in this, in that they need to provide that clear vision. Where are we going on this journey? Where do we want to get to? And that vision isn't, we want to be an agile organization. It's not, we want to implement Scrum. There's a reason why you want to do that. And what's that reason? Because implementing Agile, implementing Scrum, implementing Kanban, implementing SAFe, whichever framework you might be wedded to, that is not the goal. That is not the vision. The vision is something else. We want to increase our market share. We want to be faster to market. We want to sort of get feedback faster, whatever it is. And then an agile way of working can support that vision. Not in every circumstance. There might be times when actually it's not going to be the right thing.
Yeah.
It needs to be complementing a vision.
That's really powerful. We've talked over the years, and we've actually had similar experiences. So my question is this: so if you were to speak to an agile coach, and I'm sure some of them are listening right now, that they found themselves in that situation where they walk into a company and they're like, one of the agile coaches or Scrum Master out there, and they get, so by 2026 we're going to be agile, and this is like I was in the company once, and they actually asked the enterprise agile coach to design a Gantt chart towards agility. I'm not kidding you. They were actually putting together a Gantt chart, do this by then, do this by then, and at this day we'll be agile. So what advice would you give to that agile coach or Scrum Master as to how to handle leadership in that situation? What did they just say, my future is sealed? Or what can they do to change that paradigm?
So there's a few things that they need to make sure they are when they challenge sort of this approach. Obviously need to be respectful and need to be tactful. But remember, as a Scrum Master or Agile coach, you're there to be a change agent. You're there to be disruptive. You need to do it with respect and tact. And so you've got to be careful how you phrase this. But I'll be a bit blunter because I'm not in the office with my new CEO, CIO, CTO.
Yeah.
Why? And be that nagging 5-year-old who always wants to know why, and just keep asking why. Really delve into it. There's the retrospective, the 5 whys.
Yeah, exactly.
But why? And so what is it? Sort of get under the skin to find out what it is they really, really want to achieve. Because an agile way of working and Scrum it can absolutely help, because with that those frameworks, methodologies have the ability to look inwards to continuously improve on a regular basis. That's built in. And so we're always going to be looking at how can we do better to achieve that longer term vision. So just keep asking why. Keep challenging. So why are we doing this? Why do you want it done that way? There are situations that I've been in as a Scrum Master when I've been asked to produce that Gantt style forecast of all the backlog items that are going to be completed in I'm like, why? Because sort of like, okay, this sprint we've planned for. We know what we're trying to achieve, what our forecast, what we've committed to try and achieve. We know that. And we can probably forecast with a fair deal of accuracy what's likely to be in the next sprint, because we know what our sort of product goals are and the order that things like to take place. But beyond that, we don't know what we are actually going to achieve. So there's a diminishing return on forecasting in sprint 3, 4, 5, 6 sprints away.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's going to happen. Sort of, is anybody going to be off sick? Are the environment's going to remain? Are our testers going to find lots of bugs? What's going to happen when we release something and it gets to the end customer and things might go well, but they might not. And so they've got all of those unknowns and risks that by forecasting further and further ahead, there's that diminishing return. I said, well, why am I doing this? Because it's a waste of time. And I sort of kept saying why. And in the end, I said, right, Robin, don't do it. And I annoyed them that much. 2 sprints later, no one was doing it because they realized that there was no. So sometimes you have to be disruptive in order to get to a better state.
Yeah. And listeners, I've worked with Robin before. Robin is skillful at tact. I remember when we were at Vodafone, there are questions that were asked, and I might have the instinctive reaction to go, and Robin will be like, wait, tell me, hold on, let's find out why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Let's dig deeper.
So I'm going to give everybody a tip. It's one of those ones that sort of we taught on sort of coaching training and things like that. There's an acronym called WAIT, and it's why am I talking? And it's thinking about, obviously, sort of before you say anything, just say that to yourself, because there could be somebody else in the room that has something better to say than you might. And that a little bit of extra time allows you to digest what's being said. So you're actually able to come back with a better question or a better response rather than your initial reaction. Initial reactions can be good. They give you that sort of gut feel, but sometimes we need to think a bit more with our heads and sort of put all those things into place and work out what somebody else is trying to say from what they've actually said, and try to read between the lines a little bit. It's something lots of Scrum Masters will do in their daily Scrums or in their stand-ups. When you're listening to the updates that are being provided, you're listening to the updates that are being provided, but you're also listening for the update that isn't being provided.
True.
And that's really important. So you're trying to always read between the lines to be able to then go back when you can add the most value.
Most value. Very true. Very true. I think, yeah, that's powerful. So I'm thinking back at the answer to the question, and for what I'm getting from you now is, if you're in that situation, what you then try to achieve is, what is the problem statement, right? That's what I'm getting. So you ask enough to go, first of all, should this be done really?
Yeah.
Then if you are insisting it has to be done, let's understand the problem statement. And then we can then, like when I was at BP, I used to say that we can then use Agile as like a tool to achieve the objective, because being Agile is not enough, like you said.
Yeah.
It has to be want to be Agile to be able to do or adjust as quickly as, or make as much money as, or increase our revenue by. That's really true. So their Agile coach, their Scrum Master, you heard Robin has given the answers to your problem. So if you're facing that situation when you've come in and they've said, hey, we have a 2024 December date to be Agile, you can choose one or two things to do. Either suck it in, but that won't be effective. Because like Robin rightly said, you are a change agent, right? You're there to actually break some eggs. Because if not, you won't make any omelets, right? So first question you ask is why? Why this objective? What are we aiming to get at? Then when you can understand the problem statement, it's easier to then advise or coach with the right framework in mind, because you know what they're aiming for. It's like someone that wants to go for a race. There's a different mentality on a 100-meter dash and a marathon. So you can actually diagnose the right shoes, the right training program and all that. So that's very important. So thank you for that, Robin. Then, very important question that I've heard before. So then Agile coach, you're there, you're working, then you get that call and then someone says, so, how do we know your coaching is effective? How do you answer that question? If they say, so you've been here for a while, how can we tell that this coaching program we're taking on is effective? Or we're about to make some budgetary decisions and I need you to defend the coaching program that you have currently. How do we, maybe not necessarily your coaching program, but the coaching that you're involved in, how do you measure the effectiveness? How do you present the effectiveness of it?
It's a really difficult one, because coaching individuals and teams, there isn't necessarily a metric that you can have or that is something that's reliable. So if they say, right, we're going to measure this team's velocity, and has velocity gone up? It's like, yeah, I can make velocity go up. Everybody size things twice as big as they should be. And velocity's gone up. Wow, we're doing twice as much as before. Or throughput. Like, throughput's gone up. Well, we've just made everything smaller. So those things can be gained. It's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
So there are a lot more qualitative measures that you can sort of start to use. You can use sort of more sort of 360 style feedback with team members.
Okay.
And there are tools such as sort of Ask 5 People, where you can actually sort of go out to get that feedback and sort of get people to describe you in a word and sort of, you might want to ask more than 5 people, because then you can make like one of those word style diagrams that they have, all the different words that people use about you, or ask people about what sort of your successes that you've had, because those things aren't necessarily measurable in terms of points or time or money. As coaches, when we're working with individuals, we actually have an impact on the individual. They might be happier coming to work they're doing. They might sort of start to pick up things they didn't know. We start to make a team more cross-functional. That might be one area where you could potentially measure it, is the team's happiness with the tools, techniques, processes that they're following. So if there are specific code languages that people use, or behaviors or traits that they feel, or activities they need to undertake, like presenting or sort of in front of the team, just sort of, some people in the team talking in a room of other people can be really, really difficult. So actually taking them from not speaking to speaking, or cameras off to cameras on, increasing the psychological safety of the team is really important, because if you increase the psychological safety of the team, and you talked about empiricism earlier, that will increase the transparency, because people are more open to talk about things, be them good or not so good, things that we might want to improve, things that might not be going so well. And if we can understand that things aren't going well, we can do something about it
to improve them.
If there's no transparency, we can't do anything about it. So just that movement from camera off to camera on, not talking to talking, increases transparency, so we can do something about it. So that's a massive improvement that a coach can make. Not something that's necessarily a tangible,
measurable item.
Could
eventually lead to a tangible, measurable item, but it doesn't.
It might. And so sort of looking at how you can capture that information from team members is really important. And sometimes it is, you just need to get a testimonial, get some feedback, and ask those sort of questions of the team to be able to bring that together. But obviously we also want teams to experiment and try new things. So maybe looking at success rate of experiments is another thing. So we had our retrospective, we came out with an action item, we said we're going to try this. And one of the Scrum Masters I was sort of working with, they put together a really good proposal recently to say, right, because of the work we're doing and the people we've got in our team and the availability testers, in order to get more stuff done and deliver more value, we're going to move from 2-week to 3-week sprints, and we're going to try it for 3 sprints. So, and we're going to measure it, and these are the things that we're going to measure to see if we can deliver more. And they put together a really good pack. So they're in the middle of trying that out to see if that works. And obviously at the end of those sort of 3 sprints, they'll have a look, it's sort of, they'll make a decision. Do we carry on with 3 sprints or 3-week sprints because we've found they are better? Or we've not found enough information yet, so we're going to try it for another number of sprints. Or no, we've got worse, so we need to go back to doing what we did before. But understanding that success rate of those experiments, of those actions that you take from your retrospective, could also be something that is measurable for a team. Now, obviously, if your success rate from your experiments is low, it's not necessarily that your experiments are failing, but are you capturing the right information about your experiments? So you might want to run a retrospective on retrospective experiments to work out are we setting the right hypotheses out? Capturing the right information as we go? Are we analysing that in the right way to just sort of see where are we doing the right things when it comes to those?
That's really powerful. I'm really amazed by that, because you were able to coach a Scrum Master, and Scrum Master coached their team to look at their cadence and go, let's adjust this to see if we can get A, B, C, D, and let's measure at the end. That's really powerful, because for a team to agree, because one thing I've observed as a Scrum Master and Agile coach is to push the team, I use the word push very lightly, into the experimental phase where they can look at, because like in Tesla, they say question everything. Why is it that way? So to get a team to get to the point where they're looking at what they do and how they do and say, hey, let's check this. If there's a better way of doing stuff, that's remarkable. That's really good. I can imagine the quality of conversations you must have had with them leading to that kind of experimentation. So that's really good.
So, and they also, the other thing they did it with a bit of forgiveness over permission. So although there were conversations with sort of agile coaches in the organization to make sure they were doing something, and they documented what they wanted to do accurately. They took it upon themselves and did it. Now, some of the leaders and managers in the area where they did weren't necessarily too happy doing it.
Yeah.
But they were supported by the agile coaches. We thought it's a really good thing to do because they identified that improvement for themselves. They had a detailed hypothesis. They had detailed measurements as to how they were going to do it. And they're carrying on with that experiment. So I'm looking forward to hearing in the future, hopefully it works, and hopefully they're able to continue doing that. And because if for any reason the leadership and management there say, no, we want to go back to 2-week sprints because we want all teams to align and have all of their sprints on the same changeover day for other reasons, that removes that level of empowerment and that autonomy. And they're less likely to experiment in the future.
Yes.
And they're just going to come in and do the minimum that's necessary to get the job done. Whereas actually that mindset that we were starting to talk about of adaptability and flexibility, if you empower them, they're going to make another decision to experiment again in the future to be able to deliver more value. Because this 2-week sprint experiment is all about delivering more value. Why would you want a team to do that?
Exactly. It's a no-brainer question, isn't it? You touched on something. So I have a theory that I call the iceberg of expressions. So I believe something very clear, and I've seen it in several places. Whenever you interact with people, like you said about the experiment, it might be that the team, as a conscious entity on their own, together, have come up with an idea that they think, of all the ideas we have that are awesome and great, this is the one that has the least potential of pushback. So if you push back on this one, you won't get these other ones. But if we observe your ability as leaders to support this one, then guess what? The goal is coming soon. So there'll be that one that could potentially change the organization, but we just need you to support this first one.
It's the act of persuasion. And working out, again, and different leaders, managements, organizations might need different pieces of evidence to accept what you're wanting to do. So it's not a one size fits all when you're wanting to explain. You might need to talk to one leader in one way and present them with one thing, and you need to sort of talk to somebody else and give them something different in order to persuade them. And sometimes it's evidence that other teams within the organization have done this successfully. It might be other teams in other similar organizations or elsewhere in the agile world have done this successfully. It might be that actually saying, if we don't do this, things are going to cost more in the future. So we need to try and work out a better way of doing things, because in 6 months' time, everything's going to take twice as long, cost twice as much.
True.
And so sometimes sort of scare tactics like that could work. Let you try something. And that's the thing, but it comes back to actually, we're not doing this for the sake of doing it. We're doing it. We believe there is a benefit to be had. And sort of the team, by being allowed to do it, they're more invested in doing things. So if something does go wrong, well, they're invested in fixing it because they came up with the idea. And sort of like they want to help. Nobody goes into work wanting to do a bad job.
Very true, very true. So a question that popped into my head right now. So this is Robin or Tammy or whoever, an agile coach. And over the years, he's built up his tool belt. He knows this, that, this work. Of course, with a certain level of adaptability, right? So he starts a new role. And then when he starts, he assesses and goes, all this is, what they're doing here is rubbish. What would you advise the Agile coach do? Does he go in there and go, tear this down, put this up? How does he bring his tool belt to bear in the organization that he's just joined?
So just because you see something not working or not being as efficient or effective as it could be, and that you've seen it in other organizations, that organization has been on a journey that you've not been on. So you need to understand more about that journey. What decisions were made by the individuals, the team, department, organization to get to that point, because they could have been the best decisions for them, and they could be close to the pinnacle, close to the top of what they're actually able to achieve because of their system constraints. And just because you've seen it done better somewhere else doesn't mean that that can be directly applied. So you've got to understand the journey that they've been on to see, are there any other routes that they could have taken, and what decisions were made that could have been made differently. And in a way, it's a bit like sort of technical debt, and more technical debt in the system there is, the longer it's going to take to undo and fix. You need to understand that before coming up with lots of recommendations, because what you might do is you jump in feet first, you'll make a big splash, and you get the comment, well, that's just the way we do things around here. And you'll get people put their barriers up, and they won't be engaged in that change process. And what you want to make sure you keep those barriers down. So by having those conversations and finding out where they've been, you start to build that level of trust. You build that level of respect. So when you come up with a disruptive alternative idea, you can start to bring it in. You've shown that empathy to those individuals, to the team, to the organization, to understand those things. And then you can then sort of start to maybe seed some ideas, or see what other ideas the team have got, and get the team to buy into wanting to make the change rather than being told to make the change. If you think, going back to our small children, if you tell them to do something,
they'll do it.
How often do they actually go and do it? It's sort of like
all the time.
You've got very well behaved children. But it's sort of like, if you tell them, and it might be how you tell them. If you can sort of talk to them in a way that they start to think it's their idea, or sort of with kids, if it like make it into a game that they can sort of see some outcome from it, then you can start to they start to own that change. They embrace that change. They embrace it with positivity, and that's what we want to try and do when there is that sort of change program. We want it to be positive, rather than people saying, oh, someone's going in, we've got another change program and we're doing this again and we're trying this for the fourth time and it's never worked, it's never going to work around here. People do get change fatigue. And so that's the thing, sort of understand how many times has this sort of thing happened before? What's been the impact on everybody before? How can we make that impact smaller but still learn something to be able to continually improve and pivot?
Yeah, very true. You said that, Robin, you and I, we think on the same, you call it change fatigue. Actually, my term is change whiplash. Yeah, because like I was telling someone some time ago that people have to be careful. Agile coach, we need to be careful that for a lot of people, Agile is what has been done to them. You know, they just be moved in this straight jacket and told to work in a certain way and do that without anyone actually, like you said, taking empathy for understanding where they've been, how they got into where they are, and also, you know, having those conversations where you can seed the idea to the point where it becomes what they want to do because they think it makes the most sense. You might have a long, like Roy is saying, you might have a long list of things, but you need to start incrementally. Agile anybody, you know? So you start with an idea, they bite, you look at the impact of the idea in the context. Does it work? You don't need to roll back and you know, this kind of thing. So yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you for that. So I think you actually started touching on the other question I had, which was, what are the challenges, some of the challenges that you've had when it comes to, you know, helping people adopt an agile mindset? And I think you've started to touch on them, which is the the barriers, the pushback, you know, if done wrongly, it stares because human beings are, I always say human beings are naturally defensive. So if you stare the wrong emotion, what you get is a wall straight up. It's like, I'm fine where I am. I'm fine as I am. I'm not allowing you in. So now you mentioned empathy, having the conversations. Any other things you can tell our listeners as agile coaches that what else can they deploy to help with barriers?
Communication at all levels is really, really important. And that's communicating both sort of positive outcomes, but also things that could be improved or haven't gone as well as you'd hoped, because that creates that level of transparency. So we need to have that in there, because without transparency, you can't inspect and adapt.
Yeah,
you can't do that. To encourage that mindset, we want to encourage innovation. So coming up with those new ideas, things that we haven't tried. So actually, that should be a really positive driver. And sometimes that needs additional learning, development, training time. And that's going to slow us down a little bit. And that if you think about the change curve, where sort of you start off and actually things get slower before they get better. And that's okay, because the whole point of learning, development, training, increasing skills is you get to a place to where you're doing something better than you were before. So that's something the organization needs to take on board. That actually, we want to do something new, we want to be innovative, we want to be better. So actually, in order to be better, our people need to be better. Need to give them the time to learn, but not just the time to learn, the time to implement. Because that it's not just because you've gone on a course doesn't mean you can implement the whole thing overnight. True. It takes time to implement all of those new ways of working or that new technology, and you do it in one team, but then you've got to get it across all teams. That can be really important. I think letting people take the initiative as well is that other important thing. When we encourage that innovation, let them take the initiative, because they're going to come up with the best ideas, because they're the people doing the work.
Yeah. True. Oh, wow, that's really powerful. Thank you for that. So finally, one last question I usually ask my guests is, so now we're addressing Scrum Masters and Agile coaches and generally people in the Agile space, really, leaders and members of teams. What would you say from your experience with bringing agility into different organizations? If you could look back from when you started till now, what's that one thing you would tell past Robin to say, over these years, I've gathered this ideology is what I should have, what anybody coming in or doing this should have? What's that one thing you would say?
So we've covered it a little bit today, is sort of the why I'm talking. There's that power of silence, and sort of asking those sort of powerful, insightful questions to find out why, and listening and taking those things on board. And I think if you get into a conversation with your leaders, with your management, you ask them why, and you sit and wait a little bit, and wait a little bit more, they're going to tell you a little bit more than they wanted to tell you, because they'll become a little bit uncomfortable with that silence. And that secondary comment that they make because their silence is probably the thing that you really want to find out. So all Scrum Masters and Agile coaches out there, the power of silence is probably one of the most powerful things that you can have on your tool belt.
Wow. That is so true, because, you know, you look at it as a Scrum Master, right? You are the daily Scrum. And like I read one lady's comment on LinkedIn that her team was running the daily Scrum. She wasn't always all present because she doesn't need to be all. So one time she was there, the product owner wasn't there, the lead engineer wasn't there. And after 5 minutes, she was like, so what are we doing? So she actually was quiet with them for 5 minutes. She didn't say a word. Because she observed that they report the status of the product owner to the engineer. So once those two weren't there, the team members thought there was no one to coordinate the daily scrum. So yeah, so she used that silence to then train them.
Yeah.
When we're like, oh, what are we doing here? Like a nation, I said, no, actually, this is meant to run this way. So go ahead. So yeah, it is powerful. And you know the funny thing about, like I was telling someone just like an hour before this recording, that some of the things that we do, like when they say a Scrum Master is the responsibility to make the event hold, that's calendar based. It's time box, that's pretty much calendar based. But to make it effective is a bucket of stuff.
Yeah.
There's so many things in there to make any event effective that you need to. So yeah, so silence is one of them. And like Robin has said, now take it from me, I worked with Robin. Robin is excellent, right? Robin, I'm not saying because it's hair. Robin knows me. I think I'm fairly honest in my assessment. And I've worked with Robin. We're together for almost a year. About 10, 11 months there.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. And Robin is excellent. So when Robin says what you should learn and master is the power of silence, it's not, I'm sure there's so much more you can say to that, but this is a podcast, not necessarily a documentary. So so do that. So now, Robin, you are involved with the great Jeff Watts. Can you tell us about that and about the program that you run?
Yeah, so what would it be? About 2 years ago, Jeff created the Agile Mastery Institute and created some longer term training programs for Scrum Masters and product owners. And I'm one of the licensed guides that can deliver that training. And the training is very different. So you've got your sort of standard 2-day CSM or PSM course where you go to learn to find out more about the role of the Scrum Master or the role of the product owner. And I see those courses very much as learning to drive or learning to pass the test.
Yeah.
That's what it is. When you have your driving lessons, you learn to pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
On that CSM and PSM course, you learn to pass the test and you get your certificate. And then you have to learn to drive. You go back to your organization and you're sort of thrown in the deep end to be a Scrum Master, a product owner. To learn how to deal with all of those things, like you just said, have all those different tools, have all of those different techniques to have effective and efficient events, get the most out of the team when they're together. And what the pathway approach does, it goes beyond those 2 days. So we actually we have a 2-day workshop at the beginning where we run through either in the Scrum Mastery Pathway, we look at Jeff's retrained model. And if you've read any of Jeff's books, you'll know how that is. And in Product Mastery, we look at the driven model. And we look at the characteristics that take Scrum Masters or product owners from good to great. So that's that first 2-day workshop.
Okay.
Over the course of the next 6 months, we get back together for another 15 hours of team or group coaching.
Okay.
So you're able to go back to your organization, apply what you've learned in those first 2 days, and then continually bring that back to that sort of safe environment where we can talk about the challenges you face and how you might be able to apply things differently. So we do that for 15 hours. And then after 6 months, we come back for a further 2-day workshop where we go through those models again, either retrained or driven, to go sort of even greater heights as a Scrum Master or product owner. So this is delivered over 6 months. So you've got that continual pathway and you get a certificate at each stage. So you become an explorer for those first 2 days, navigator for the online 15-hour sessions, and then a adventurer for that past one third. Actually, sort of, it sets you up for greatness rather than just providing that initial certification.
No, that's fantastic. That's really good because I've had different conversations with different people, and one thing is evident that the 2-day course is fantastic, but the contexts are so many. You can't. I mean, even if you went in with questions about every context, like you rightly said, the PSM 1 and the CSM courses are generally designed for you to understand Scrum enough to pass the exam.
Yeah.
When you get into the real world, I mean, you can imagine oh, the daily scrum is 15 minutes every day. You walk into a team, like when we are Vodafone and people are doing daily scrum for 30 minutes. What do? Do you say, no, hell, take it away? You need to know how to help that team
Yeah,
get to the next level.
it is.
Yeah.
And we go into, so we, throughout the course of the podcast, we've mentioned words like respect and tactfulness and empathy and disruptive. And they're all the things we go through on the pathways to give you more sort of techniques, the ability to coach your teams more. Because again, there's no coaching on the CSM or PSM,
True.
but it's a big part of a Scrum Master role.
Yeah.
But we go through all of those things: how to be more resourceful, how to be more nurturing, how to inspire your team, to do those things and give you everything that you need to become a great Scrum Master.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, Robin, how can we find you?
So you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn. So everyone's on LinkedIn, but you'll be able to find me. I'm the only Robin Hackshall on there, as far as I know. I'll need to go away and check, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only one.
Okay.
You can also go to my website, which is enigmacast.com. And obviously on there you'll find details of the sort of training that I offer on the pathways and other training that I do. And obviously, if you're interested in any coaching, you can go to enigmacoaching.co.uk, where I deliver sort of individual sort of group coaching, executive coaching, anything like that as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Robin. It's been fantastic having you on.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. And thanks for coming on. Like I said, Robin is an old friend. When I say old friend, we've known each other for a couple of years. Look at Robin. Robin is a day over 21, so he's not an old guy. He's young guy. But thank you so very much for bringing your experience to our listeners and all that. Because, I mean, the topic we talked about, adaptability, is we see organizations, right, where the idea is you bring an agile coach to make them agile, but the organization is separate. But we know that for it to work, because like I always tell people, the aim of agile for an organization is to turn an organization from where it is to becoming a learning organization, where you can learn, you can inspect and adapt and improve as a whole. So it's a really powerful topic. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your experience with us. Like I said at the beginning, get ready, right? I said at the beginning, Robin is experienced. He knows what he's talking about. He's done it several times and he's going to do it again and again and again. And like Robin has said, you can reach him on his website. I'll put the links in the description of the podcast, and also you will see it on the screen below eventually. So thank you very much, Robin. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to and watching this podcast. It's been exciting and interesting. I've learned a lot. I'm sure you have as well. And for those agile coaches that are about to start, Robin has given you the blueprint for succeeding, really. And like Robin has said, if you actually want to, get in touch with him to actually have personal coaching or group coaching, hit him on his website. I'll put the link in the description, so you can actually have a one-to-one with Robin or group coaching with Robin. Robin knows what he's talking about. Take it from me. So thank you very much for joining us in today's podcast. It's been an exciting time. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. If you're not following on your favorite podcast application, so either on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, you see the whole list. Just subscribe. Come on, let's stay in this thing to learn together. So my word to you now is, as we leave from this podcast, like Robin has rightly said, don't forget to practice the power of silence, right? Use silence to draw out what you need to improve. So keep listening, stay tuned for more, and thank you for joining us on today's podcast. It's bye from me, Tammy, and from Robin.
Yes.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much.